Catch a thread's exception in the caller thread. I'm very new to Python and multi-threaded programming in general. Basically, I have a script that will copy files to another location. I would like this to be placed in another thread so I can output ... to indicate that the script is still running. The problem that I am having is that if the files cannot be copied, it will throw an exception. This is okay if running in the main thread, however, having the following code does not work. In the thread class itself, I try to rethrow the exception, but it does not work. I have seen people on here ask similar questions, but they all seem to be doing something more specific than what I am trying to do, and I don't quite understand the solutions offered. I have seen people mention the usage of sys.exe_info, however I do not know where or how to use it. Edit, the code for the thread class is below.
The problem is that thread_obj.start returns immediately. The child thread that you spawned executes in its own context, with its own stack. Any exception that occurs there is in the context of the child thread, and it is in its own stack. One way I can think of right now to communicate this information to the parent thread is by using some sort of message passing, so you might look into that. Try this on for size.
Although it is not possible to directly catch an exception thrown in a different thread, here's a code to quite transparently obtain something very close to this functionality. Your child thread must subclass the xthread class instead of threading.thread, and the parent thread must call the child_thread.join_with_exception method instead of child_thread.join when waiting for the thread to finish its job. Technical details of this implementation: when the child thread throws an exception, it is passed to the parent through a queue and thrown again in the parent thread. Notice that there's no busy waiting in this approach.
If an exception occurs in a thread, the best way is to re-raise it in the caller thread during join. You can get information about the exception currently being handled using the sys.exe_info function. This information can simply be stored as a property of the thread object until join is called, at which point it can be re-raised. Note that a queue.queue, as suggested in other answers, is not necessary in this simple case where the thread throws at most one exception and completes right after throwing an exception. We avoid race conditions by simply waiting for the thread to complete. For example, extend xthread below, overriding xcron instead of run. Python 2.x. Python 3.x. The 3-argument form for raise is gone in Python 3, so change the last line to.
The concurrent futures module makes it simple to do work in separate threads or processes and handle any resulting exceptions. Concurrent futures is included with Python 3.2 and is available as the backported futures module for earlier versions.
If you want to support the channel, please consider liking and subscribing.